for another episode of the Cozy Corner of Cinema. Episode number 155 being recorded on Thursday, March 20th, 2025 at 5:49 p.m. The weather lately has been a little turbulent, but mostly good. We got some rain today, so that's just wonderful. It was a beautiful day out the other day, I tell you. Yesterday I was driving along, and oh my gosh, man, I tell you, it's like those days you kind of live for where, at least you live for you're going outside or something, It's sort of like you roll down the window, you have your radio on, listening to music, listening to a podcast, or not listening to anything at all. Just enjoying kind of the ambience around. It's just one of those beautiful, magical kind of days and moments that you really, really want to cherish, man. Really beautiful stuff. But anyways, I hope you all have been being consistent and being persistent with your goals. Don't forget about those New Year's resolutions you were talking about. If it was the beginning of the year and you were talking about, I'm going to write this great screenplay, I'm going to learn an instrument, I'm going to learn a language, I'm going to, start taking classes on how to, do avant-garde dancing. And hey, man, it's sort of like, well, we're in the thick of it. It's March 20th right now. I'm recording this, so you definitely want to get on that, man. I think it was last week, I was talking about the two films about the 1972 Olympics in Munich. I was talking about One Day in September, the documentary from 1999, as well as the recent dramatic film, September 5th, which just came out this year. One of the films I forgot to mention was one that I was going to talk about briefly, but I guess I will mention it here because it's good in the context and would have been better in the conversation, but it will work here as well to briefly mention the 1973 documentary Visions of Eight, following 8 different filmmakers with segments from that year's Olympics. So we have well-renowned and respected filmmakers like Milos Forman, Claude Lelouch, John Schlesinger, Arthur Penn, all doing various segments in different kind of perspectives. Some on, they have names like the Decathlon, the Fastest, the Losers. The Losers is one that was one of the highlights of the whole documentary, sort of talking about how they went the distance quite literally. They go all the way to Munich. You train, you tighten up every sort of notch you need to. You put some oil on the wheels, you get going. And then what happens when you come up short, when you're not the one walking away with gold, silver, bronze, where you're not walking away with anything. And on paper, it's easy to say, like, hey, man, getting to the Olympics on its own is an achievement in its own right, I mean, sort of physical strength and the dexterity that you need to be put on the world stage like that is no easy feat. And but in the moment, it's sort of like all that training, all that time and doing just to come up short, and that goes for anything, man. Maybe you're in a tournament of playing, a video game, or maybe there's a test you got to take or something like that, and you're just like, oh, only a couple people get to win, or this or that, and what do? Do you walk away, kicking the sand and going, well, I give up, it wasn't for me? Or do you come back and maybe next year you do better, maybe you do worse? What about the year after that and the year after that, And, will you be discouraged because you lost? Or will you be discouraged because maybe all that time and energy you put into it was not something that you had your heart into? Maybe you don't find your passion, your true sort of thing that you're going for until later in life, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. You hear so many stories about people who, later in life really kind of find that thing that really sort of, passions them, or they really kind of really start to get their footing later in life. It's very easy to kind of look at the successes so young, where it's like, oh, well, Orson Welles, he directed Citizen Kane when he was 24, and, these filmmakers, they started off young, and look at me, I don't have a film, and it's like, brother, That is no way to look at it. I found myself in that situation before, unintentionally, where I'm sitting there going like, man, what about this, what about that? And then you got to step back and go, well, hold on a second, man, hold on. This ain't a race, man. Everyone's got their own time, they've got their own knowledge, they've got their own creative input. So if you're on the other side listening to this in your car, at your job, out in public, whatever it is, man, and you're thinking to yourself, oh man, I haven't written a great novel, I haven't, directed a great film, or not even a great film. Like say I haven't written a novel, I haven't directed a film, I haven't done this or that. And meanwhile, this person, they've done a whole bunch of movies, they've written a whole bunch of books, they can play all these guitar solos, and I can't even play a chord. Brother, you gotta focus on you and you only. You gotta put in the work and the effort, and you gotta go at your pace, man. Maybe you'll succeed, maybe you'll fail, but by not trying at all and by not doing it, you're not gonna find out the answer to that, man. So don't focus on what other people have. Don't focus on what their successes, their failures are. Focus on you. Learn from your successes, learn from your failures, and use that to make the art and get the job done that you intend to. And I know I kind of went off track there. I only was kind of briefly talk about Visions of 8. But yes, Visions of 8. It's been a little bit since I've seen this film, about a month or so I can't give you specifics, but I did want to mention this in so that I am still going through John Schlesinger's filmography. I recently watched I'm up to The Falcon and the Snowman from 1985. That's right. And considered, at least in the book that I had read, his last sort of great film. And I thought it was an exceptional film. A really, really solid true story. Solid performances by Sean Penn and Timothy Hutton. They both really play off each other well. They both have different motives and ideas what they're going for, and just a solid movie. Because some of Schlesinger's films before that, I found myself not quite as attached to. Honky Tonk Freeway is one that often gets a lot of flack, but I really don't think it's all that bad. I think it's more of a symptom of just, not being a particularly funny comedy. It's not terrible by any means. It's a really great big kind of car mashup on a highway at the end of the film. A lot of destruction going on, a lot of chaos, and yeah, it's not a particularly funny film. At least I don't think so. Humor is completely subjective, and I can't really say for sure. This film was funny, this film wasn't funny. And I say that in context of recommending it to somebody, but it's by no means his worst film. And I watched Yanks before that in 1979 with Richard Gere, and interesting ideas didn't really come together for me. But like I said, it's just interesting to kind of go through his filmography and see these kind of quieter, earlier films. Really solid kind of character-driven films to these more kind of big, elaborate sort of productions. Something like Day of the Locust, which ends with such a big, kind of loud, bombastic finale that didn't really work for me. I know people have a great fondness for that film, and I understand. I respect that. I respect the film. I respect, in the context of it's great to read these books because it gives you a new context of the film. Sort of the film that he thought was going to bring him kind of back into the forefront. And it didn't really work out that way. And I'm not particularly fond of the film. In fact, it might be my least favorite of his that I've seen. But I still have a handful of films to go through. But just a solid filmmaker nonetheless. I was like, I mentioned Marathon Man. I didn't want to skip over that like I forgot. Marathon Man I had seen previously. Rewatched it again. Still a good, solid thriller, man. It's just a real good film with Dustin Hoffman and Roy Scheider. Good mystery crime film. Solid stuff. And here I am, not silencing my telephone. Goodness gracious. I apologize, people. Anyways, moving on from there, man. Yeah, so what was I going to mention here? That is the question. Let's talk about a contemporary film, jumping from John Schlesinger to a film from 2023. I'm going to pull up the information right here so I have some context. We got the names up right here. I do apologize for this. And let's talk about the film by Tynan DeLong. He made a 2023 film called Dad and Stepdad. I think this was based off a short, or at least this was a short originally, to my knowledge. To my knowledge, I think this was either entirely improvised or... Okay, well, according to the IMDb trivia, which is questionably reliable, but it says, shot in 5 days with a crew of 7 and only an outline. All dialogue was improvised. And it's an interesting film in that regard, because you can say an improvised film can go either one of two ways. One, you can have characters sort of meander and not really have much of a film going on there, and that's not necessarily a negative thing. Let me talk about that there. A lot of times with some of the mumblecore films where you're like, what's the plot in this movie? What's going on? It's like, don't you worry, that's not the focus of the movie. The focus is dealing with these characters, dealing with these seemingly sort of banal, average kind of situations, but also their interactions as well that make it just so interesting. But this film is not terribly reliant on a plot, and that is not a negative thing. I gotta say, the first maybe 25 minutes, I will say, is some of my favorite comedy in recent memory. I was laughing hard at the first 25 minutes of this, because you have these 3 characters, well, 4 characters later, but we have 3 characters. We have Colin Burgess playing Jim, we have Brian Fiddyman playing Branson, and we have Anthony Oberbeck playing Dave. Now, what it is that we have this character Branson, played by Brian Fiddyman, who is I think they said he's their 13-year-old son, but he's a grown man. And you look at the kind of blurb about the movie, and it says inspired by Clifford, the 1996 Martin Short film. The Martin Short film with... Oh my gosh, what is his name? Mary Steenburgen, and what is his name? That's going to bother me now. Charles... Oh boy, that's going to bother me now. Charles Grodin. Thank you, Internet Movie Database. We have that film. You have Martin Short playing this 10-year-old boy. He's a grown man. It's very strange. Very just bizarre, the imagery of it. Also, I should say that, yes, this was based on a 2018 short film by the same name. But the first 25 minutes or so, I will say, like I said before, is so funny, man. I mean, it's because this is a case where the improv really works. They're back and forth, Jim and Dave. You know, I don't know what these 2 actors' relationships are, if they have done other shorts or comedies or anything like that together, but they bounce off each other so well. And the awkwardness of the situation of both trying to one-up each other and both failing miserably and coming off incredibly awkward and incredibly just strange dialogue at times. There's one part that one piece of dialogue that caught me so off guard and gave me a good laugh, and it is Dave who's talking about he says something about the age of consent, and that's all I want to say, because it caught me so off guard. And man, I tell you, that it was like, at that point I'm like, man, this is going to be this is going to be a total discovery. And I will say, when I say the first 25 minutes, this does have a drop off at some point. It doesn't exactly keep that same level of comedy throughout. I do think that there are some lulls in the movie, and when I say lulls, I don't necessarily mean that, well, this part wasn't as funny, that's going to happen. You know, there's not a lot of comedies where I can say I'm consistently laughing throughout. I mean lulls more so that it seems a little aimless at times. It does seem a little creeps into that mumblecore kind of territory, and that's totally fine if that's, you know, what it wants to be. But I think more so that the level of just how funny that first act was doesn't really kind of keep throughout. Later on in the film, we are introduced to the... Oh, I should also say, I don't even know if I really gave a plot to this or not, but yeah, Jim is the stepdad to Branson, because now he is married to this character, Susie, played by Claire O'Kane, who comes into the film about halfway through. And Dave is the previous husband, and Branson is not really getting along. He seems, he's like, what is going on here? I should also say that one of the films that I had seen with Colin Burgess as well, which I thought was pretty good, I want to recommend, was from 2023 called Free Time, about he's playing the title character, or not the title character, I'm sorry, he's playing the main character, and he quits his job. He wants to, like, I'm just going to live life. I'm not going to be stuck behind a desk or anything like that, but then almost immediately realizes that's a bad idea. He just kind of gets trapped in this situation where he's kind of aimless. He doesn't really know what he's doing. He has no money. He tries to get his job back, and they say, no, we're not, get out of here. What are you doing? And that's a good film as well, I would say. But I do like this film better. But yeah, I think just, even when the film is not consistently funny, the back and forth between the two of them, just sort of their interactions, I would say mostly works. There's only really one part where I could say that, like, boy, this is like bad improv. And it's towards the end of the film. They have like a back and forth about, I'm trying to remember what he was about. It's about like something about, something about being a psychic or something, or they're like in a field together, and they're talking about like, no, it's not in your body. That's something like that. I'm not even gonna try to remember. That was the only part where I would say, boy, this is not working at all, and this is going on and on and on. That's the problem with improv sometimes, is that it can be a positive or it can be a detriment, because sometimes you get some, like the stuff early on where it's just so funny and so charming, and then later on you get some scenes where, if you're all on set and you maybe have an idea of each other's humor and sort of stuff, it can be kind of difficult to know when it's not exactly working. With a kind of film like this, it's not going to be like the studio days. You're going to like show it to an audience and be like, well, what do you guys think? Well, we're going to change because the audience didn't really like this and they like this. Nah, man, you kind of get the idea that here, they're really just kind of doing what they think is funny. And for the most part, it is funny. It's one that in retrospect, I think I liked more than when I initially watched it. I initially, part of me was like, damn, man, that movie's not really holding up to the first act. But as it's going on, I think it does have a charm in its own right. And when I talk about the evolution of kind of these, I don't even really want to call it mumblecore, because it's really not that, but sort of the evolution where we're getting away from, it has that improvised style. It has that sort of like awkward sort of, 20, 30 something characters, kind of dealing with these simple situations. But when I'm talking about like the Alex Ross Perry films and this, and even something like Free Time, that feel more closer to just these kind of indie comedies with kind of a sprinkling of the mumblecore kind of elements to it, because you don't want to lump it in and you're expecting something along the lines of like a Joe Swanberg type of film, or like an early Aaron Katz film or something like that. It's really not that. It's more overtly funny, like laugh out loud, because as much as I like the Aaron Katz or the Andrew Bujalski films, I mean, they're not ones that I'm like laughing out loud at. This is a different kind of film, but it does work. And I didn't even know that this had gotten a. I say gotten. That's not a word. This had got a. This had got doesn't sound right either. It doesn't matter either way. This had a Blu-ray released by No Budge, which is available on vinegarsyndrome.com. I don't know when this got released, but I definitely want to keep an eye on this. And this is actually their only release, so. Okay, what is this? No Budge is a streaming platform and boutique label for young and emerging filmmakers, focused on low-budget cinema, DIY visions, alternative comedy, and more. We spotlight indie filmmakers working with limited resources and without major film industry connections. A leading curatorial voice since 2011, we have been featured by the New York... Okay. Very cool, man. I'd like to see some more Blu-rays from them, because if this was their only release, man, this was one that I thought was pretty solid, man. Flawed for sure in a way that a comedy can be, where it just kind of runs out of steam at a certain point. But either way, good stuff. But I would recommend this. I watched this on Mubi, so I wanted to make a note about that. And I'm actually on their website now, so just kind of looking what they got. And they actually have a section for you to submit a film. Look at that. That is cool, man. Looking for... So, hey, man, if you guys, all you indie filmmakers out there, check out No Budge. It's I don't really know the specifics behind it, so you know you may want to read the fine print. You don't want to be finding out you're submitting something, and then it's like, oh my gosh, they took my idea, they're remaking it, they put Leonardo DiCaprio in the movie, I'm not getting $1 out of it, man. Yeah. That's cool, man. Yeah, keep an eye on that, guys. No budge. What's that website? Nobudge.com. Go for that, man. Cool stuff. Okay, did I say I watched a movie? I don't know if I did or not. I'm kind of losing my mind over here, man. This is my second cup of coffee right here, and I'm losing my damn mind, man. I tell you, that's okay, man. You know, don't we all at some point? Very good, man. Very good stuff. So yeah, man, cool stuff right there, man. That was just a total discovery on Mubi. I had never even heard of it, but I was cycling through some of their stuff. I'd watched Queen of Earth from Alex Ross Perry, which I mentioned before. I watched Matt and Mara from 2024, just because of something I was writing that was watching these films for context, for contextual sake, and they definitely helped, as well as some of the other films I was talking about before, including like Nights and Weekends, Baghead, The Puffy Chair, Hannah Takes the Stairs, these kinds of films that were good in context. Were good in context of the writing, I should say. Though they vary in quality. I talked about some of these a bit more on a couple episodes ago when I was talking about The Puffy Chair in episode number 151. That is available on YouTube and Spotify. Okay, man, there we go. Let's talk about a documentary, because I feel like did I talk about a documentary last week? I'm going to be talking about a documentary this week with with a title that's easy to pass up. You go, is this a horror movie? No, man, it's not a horror movie. This is just a man trying to make some money. This is a documentary from John Landis, famous John Landis from Animal House and American Werewolf in London, The Blues Brothers. One of his films that's never really talked about, at least I don't hear talked about, from 2004, documentary called Slasher. And you say, what is this, a horror film, man? I'm not trying to be scared, man. I'm trying to watch a documentary. Don't worry, man. It's not a horror film. It's a documentary about this man. He's the slasher, Michael Bennett. He's one of these guys. He goes around to these car dealerships, and he does anything he can to finesse you to buy a car. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, well, this sounds like a movie I've seen, man, and you'd be right about that. I would imagine, I can't find exact information, but I would imagine that it probably at least had some inspiration. The film The Goods, Live Hard, Sell Hard from 2009 with Jeremy Piven, Catherine Hahn. I'm trying to remember who was in that movie. Ed Helms, Ken Jeong, Ving Rhames. I'm going off the top of my head right now here. The older actor. I'm trying to remember who that was. That wasn't James. No, that wasn't James. What am I talking about? Anyways, but I imagine that I would imagine that film was inspired by this one, because this guy, I mean, Michael Bennett is a unique, interesting person in his own right. It's he has his own kind of crutches that the film really doesn't. It makes a point to not kind of harp on too much. He has, he's always away from home. He's talking, with his wife here and there, but it sounds like the relationship is, kind of questionable up and down. He's drinking a lot, man. He's going to these places. He's just wearing out his voice. He can be good with people. He can be, he really is persistent about getting a sale of these cars. When he goes to these places, man, I mean, these are just like bad cars, man. These people, they don't really have a whole lot of money. He's going to a lot of like urban areas and stuff. And we really kind of focus him on this one weekend here where he's got to sell these cars. And that's why I talk about with The Goods, because in that film as well, it's that one weekend he's got to sell X amount of cars on the lot. In that film, he got to sell all the cars on the lot. And I tell you, The Goods is an underrated film, man. I think that's one funny film of recent. Well, I say recent, oh my gosh, that was 14 years ago, good lord. But he's a slasher, man, because he slashes all these prices. He's like, hey, come on down to this dealership, we got the $88 car for you. And of course, everyone is like, hey man, works for the $88 car, and of course there's never something simple as walking around with a damn toy chainsaw, and people are like, hey man, slash the price, and you can just see him putting on a brave face. He seems so exhausted all the time. When he's not selling cars, he's drinking, he's having drunken conversations, he's trying to get, he's trying to talk to his wife. We see his other kind of people selling cars as well, and their tactics as well. Tactics in terms of they're not outright lying or saying anything, but ultimately at the end of the day, they are kind of selling these crappy kind of cars to people who probably shouldn't be buying them because of there's one thing at the end, man, it just sums up the whole movie. I don't even want to give it away. Let me just say a character gets a car at the end of the movie, and we'll just leave it at that. Man, I think this DVD is out of print. I don't know if this is even in print anymore. I'd imagine not. I don't know who released this originally. I watched this off of YouTube. If you just type in slash... I should also say, the year is 2004, so if you're trying to look up slasher movie, you're probably just going to get a bunch of horror movies or something like that, and we don't want to be scared, man. We want to be watching these movies. Yeah, okay, this was originally put up by IFC. I would love to see a Blu-ray of this, man, at some point, to see any kind of update, because I tried to look up an update after the fact with the people in the movie, and I couldn't really find a whole lot. I think I found a LinkedIn for Michael, but I don't even know if it's the same guy or not. But I would love to see an interview with these guys, because actually, where is it? I'm standing up here, man. I'm right here. Don't worry about it. I picked up this documentary that I don't know if I even ever talked about on the show, but I liked a lot, from Factory 25, called I Am a Sex Addict. I had seen this previously, and this got a Blu-ray, like I said, from Factory 25, and this is also a solid documentary, and it has an update with the main guy in it. It's an interesting kind of documentary, because it's about this dude, man. He's about to get married for the third time. What's his name? Kaveh Zahedi? I don't remember how they say his name. Anyways, he's got a bad addiction, man. He's addicted to prostitutes, and he just cannot stop getting prostitutes. So he uses this documentary as kind of a catharsis to be like, hey, man, I got to kick my addiction. I got to focus on my fiance and the problems that come along with it, man. And this Blu-ray has new features, including Tripping with Kaveh, Caveh. How do I say that name? Which is a short film by Will Oldham. Deleted scenes, an animated short film called Unmaking of I Am a Sex Addict, Zahedi's acceptance speech at the Gotham Awards, and a 32-page booklet, including essays by Zahedi and Kathy Joyce, and an interview by a name we just brought up before, Andrew Bujalski. That is great, man. Check out this documentary. Maybe I'll talk about it more another time, but this is a very good, very funny documentary that should be talked about more in depth, but time is not on my side, so I'm not going to do that. But hey, guys, it's a beautiful day out. It's just, my gosh, man, we're really getting into that kind of spring mentality. But that doesn't mean we're not going to focus on the work. The days are getting nicer. People are going to invite you out. They go, hey, man, come to this bar. Come to this barbecue. Let's go eat a bunch of hot dogs. Let's go run in front of traffic. And it's up to you whether or not you want to go run in front of traffic or not, or you want to stay home and get the job done. And I'm certainly going to be doing the latter. But that's all I got for this time, guys. Hey, thank you so much for listening. Take care. All the best. And until next time.